In the haunting depths of Buchenwald forest, lives ended in silence, and history buried their cries. What led to this chilling chapter of World War II? Buchenwald was one of the largest concentration camps on German soil, located on the Ettersberg hill near Weimar. Initially, it detained political prisoners, but over time its population expanded to include Jews, Roma, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals, and other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. While the camp itself was a site of immense suffering, the surrounding forests concealed even darker secrets: the ruthless executions of countless prisoners. Let's set the stage. It's July 1937, and on top of the Ettersberg hill, just outside Weimar, Germany, the first buildings of the Buchenwald concentration camp are going up. It's a place rich in history. Locals love this spot for picnics, and it's even said that Goethe, one of Germany's greatest poets, wrote parts of Faust under the shade of the hill's trees. But Ettersberg Hill wasn't just a symbol of art and culture. By the 1930s, Weimar had become a stronghold for far-right extremists who despised Germany's post-World War I democratic government. So, when Hitler came to power, it seemed inevitable that this hill would transform into a dark symbol of the Nazi regime, a site to imprison its enemies. The name Buchenwald means beech forest, and the area lived up to it. It was a heavily wooded, scenic spot, often used as a hunting ground by nobility. But on July 15, 1937, everything changed. A convoy of trucks arrived carrying 149 political prisoners. These men weren't criminals. They were skilled carpenters and craftsmen, forced to build the camp under the watchful eyes of SS guards. They laid streets, built barracks, and even constructed guard towers and a zoo for SS families. The most ruthless of all was the Zellerbau, a prison wing where torture and executions became a brutal reality for thousands. The forest surrounding Buchenwald was both a natural and symbolic barrier. To the prisoners, it represented the unknown, where death often awaited. For the SS, it served as a secluded location for their most sinister activities. The dense trees muffled the sounds of gunfire, and the isolation ensured that no prying eyes could witness the atrocities carried out. The forest executions were not random acts of violence, but meticulously planned operations. Prisoners were often told they were being relocated or sent to work, only to be marched into the woods and executed. These killings were carried out systematically, with precision and cold efficiency. Many of these executions targeted political dissidents, Jewish inmates, and those who resisted camp authority. The methods varied from shootings to other brutal techniques, but the result was always the same: a silent death far from the public eye. The forest became a graveyard with bodies buried hastily or left exposed to the elements. Today, the forest of Buchenwald stands as a reminder of the extent of Nazi cruelty, its trees bearing silent witness to the countless lives lost. The victims of Buchenwald's forest executions came from diverse backgrounds, united only by their suffering under Nazi oppression. Among them were political prisoners accused of conspiring against the regime, and Jewish detainees targeted for extermination simply because of their identity. Each victim had a story, a life interrupted by unimaginable cruelty. In 1943, Buchenwald, along with many of the other camps, became a site for gruesome medical experiments conducted on live patients by Nazi doctors. Poisons were tested on live subjects, including various pathogens such as typhus. Some inmates were intentionally wounded, and their injuries allowed them to become infected so that various types of treatment could be tried on them. If the victims did not die during the experiments, they were killed so that their bodies could be autopsied. The internal organs of some of the victims from these experiments were preserved in jars at Buchenwald's pathology department in the name of science. Before we continue, take a moment to hit the like button to explore more unsettling yet vital chapters of history. Subscribe and join us in preserving these memories. Buchenwald's first commandant, Karl Otto Koch, was a ruthless figure in the Nazi regime. He had impressed Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, in 1934, which led to him becoming the commandant of Sachsenberg, a concentration camp in Chemnitz. His reputation for cruelty grew, and he was transferred to Buchenwald in 1937, where his brutality continued. Koch's cruelty was notorious. He would punish even the smallest infractions in horrific ways. One day he noticed spit on the ground, a clear violation of his rigid rules, and mercilessly ordered the closest prisoner to lick it up. He often used violence during roll calls, hitting prisoners or whipping them with a leather strap he carried at all times. The entire camp sometimes had to watch as fellow inmates were beaten or hanged for minor offenses. A special wooden table called the Bock was used for beatings, and hangings were carried out on portable gallows near the gatehouse. These public punishments were meant to instill fear in the prisoners and keep them cooperative. The executions in Buchenwald's forest were even more ruthless. Prisoners were often told they were being sent to work or relocated, but once they were in the forest, their fate became clear. The SS carried out the killings with brutal efficiency, often shooting prisoners one by one. In some cases, victims were forced to dig their own graves before being executed. These executions were not just about killing prisoners, they were a way for the SS to maintain control and spread fear throughout the camp. The psychological torment was just as terrible as the physical violence, as prisoners faced their final moments with fear and despair. Survivors and liberators have provided crucial accounts of the executions in Buchenwald's forest, offering a glimpse into the atrocities that unfolded there. Their testimonies reveal the depths of human cruelty and the resilience of those who endured such suffering. One liberator recalled discovering mass graves in the forest, the remains of countless victims whose lives were taken in silence. The haunting sight of the graves and the enduring traces of the executions left an unforgettable impression on all who witnessed it. When 3rd Army Commander Patton paid a visit to Buchenwald, he was not only shocked by the stacks of corpses scattered around the camp, their dead eyes staring at him. He was also incredibly angry. He was angry that the Nazis could do this to other human beings, and even angrier that the townspeople of Weimar, who undoubtedly knew what had been going on atop the Ettersberg hill for 8 years, silently condoned it and even profited from it. Survivors' accounts provide additional insight. Some described hearing gunfire from the forest, knowing full well that their fellow prisoners were being executed. Others recounted narrow escapes or shared stories of loved ones lost to the forest cruelty. Photographic evidence taken both during and after the war corroborates these testimonies, providing visual proof of the atrocities. These images, along with personal accounts, form a critical part of the historical record, ensuring that the horrors of Buchenwald are neither forgotten nor denied. The legacy of Buchenwald and its surrounding forest is both haunting and profound. Today, the Buchenwald Memorial serves as a powerful reminder of the atrocities committed there and a beacon of hope for education and remembrance. Visitors can walk through the camp and the forest, witnessing the harrowing sights where over 56,000 lives were lost. Historical records estimate that 56,545 people died at Buchenwald. This includes 33,462 deaths documented by SS records, 8,483 executed by shooting, approximately 1,100 hanged, and around 13,500 who perished during evacuation transports. These figures represent a death rate of 24% based on SS records showing 240,000 prisoners passed through the camp. The forest, once a place of peace, now stands as a solemn witness to these atrocities. Its trees symbols of both sorrow and resilience. Preservation efforts ensure these stories are never forgotten. The memorial offers exhibits and guided tours, providing visitors with a deep understanding of the camp's history and the broader horrors of the Holocaust. Through awareness and remembrance, the memorial honors the victims and fosters a commitment to preventing such atrocities from happening again. The executions in the forest of Buchenwald represent one of the darkest chapters of World War II. As the trees stand in silence, they hold the echoes of the past, urging us to remember and learn. If you found the story both horrifying and important to remember, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay informed on more historical accounts that must never be forgotten.